guess what? It's time for another discussion here on the Public Square. This one's going to be another unique conversation, though, because it begins with donuts. What's the story of the box of donuts on the table, Dave?
We have called our own bluff. For years, I am guilty of saying that if we could travel the country, get a handful of people around a table with good coffee and enough donuts and enough coffee, within just a few hours, we could basically, on paper, solve the biggest concerns that we have as a nation about immigration reform, et cetera. We could do it. So what we have done is we have 4 boxes of donuts on the table.
But there are 6 of us. How does that work out?
Listen, they are, and we will not do all of the advertising. One of them is a national brand.
Okay.
The other 3 are locals to Valley City, Ohio, where the American Mission Center and our broadcast studios emanate from.
Yeah, I got a local to Parma, Ohio.
They are extraordinary, and they will most likely be consumed during the conversation because we must. It's a duty. It's an obligation.
Okay.
It's part of the formula. So we're going to solve immigration today in an hour.
I find it interesting after Dunkin' spent all that money on a Super Bowl ad that you don't have any Dunkin' Donuts on the table.
That's true. But you think back to
it's because of the producer's name. We didn't want to get into a copyright problem.
They changed their name. They're not Dunkin' Donuts anymore.
They
don't
Dunkin'.
want to be known as a donut shop. So they did it to themselves, Wayne.
Yeah.
And Alan is pursuing what the property rights might be on that intellectual property. So.
But you think back. I mean, I think back as a kid, going to the donut shop, and every small town has their own favorite local one, right? And I can think of
God bless America.
Going to ours in downtown East Liverpool, and on a Saturday morning, you wanted to get there early because if you didn't, all the cream sticks were going to be gone and no one was going to be happy. But there was no one ever in a bad mood or mad at a donut shop, even when they ran out of donuts. Everyone's happy to be. Everyone's happy to be there. Yep. There's unlimited coffee. You're never going to run out of coffee. You may run out of donuts.
Dunk is now actually rating multiple boxes. He's doing halvesies, okay?
Oh, yeah.
He's
just touch them all, Dunk. We're fine. Just touch them all.
So if we had boxes of donuts in Congress,
yes,
while they are debating law, we'd be okay.
I don't think Secretary Kennedy would allow that. But
no, gluten-free.
It'd be worth it to solve the problem.
Non-GMO.
What we have to do is get them off the floor, though. We got to get them back in the caucus rooms.
Yes.
It's got to be a smaller group because you need just enough people that whoever's watching. By the way, Melanie, the ones in that particular box don't count. Look at these. These are like Barbie doll donuts. Did you see those? Look at those.
Oh my!
Are
they even American?
What do you
my
call
goodness!
Yeah, a donut's not supposed to be pretty.
Yeah, that's like he's going to get one. Okay,
and donut holes are supposed to be chocolate.
Okay. Oh, so this is chocolate glazed there, and there are chocolate.
I have chocolate in here
Wayne,
too.
don't you wish you were here?
I know. You guys need to pass one to me virtually here.
Virtually, yes. We're gonna. We'll.
My teleporter is working.
I'm going to be messy here. Can I have it?
Yes.
But I got to tell you my donut story though, and we'll move on. I was in the studio. I normally abstain from donuts, but a friend of mine, we're in the studio together, and he said, "You got to try these new donuts." And I see you have one of the boxes sitting on the table there of them, and I said, "No," but okay. He forced me to eat it. The next day, I was in the hospital with gallbladder, and I'm positive that the ultrasound showed that the gallstone was the shape of that donut. I'm positive of it.
I have broken many, many rules and couldn't resist. And so, all right. Yeah, but this one was, and Dunk is now coming back for the other halves. All right. Okay. So
all the time we have for donut talk. Okay, go ahead.
We've got the donuts here. We've got the coffee here. And so now our objective is to start on the immigration debate and paper and pencil and pen. So what I'd like to do is I would like to start. We spent 2 weeks defining terms. So if you want to catch up, the last 2 broadcasts are definitely worth listening to. We wanted this to be at least a 3-part series. So let's move toward resolution. Dunk, you're going to have to move your donut because it's blocking the clock.
I literally put a donut in front of the clock.
He put a donut in front of the clock, so I don't know how much time we got in this segment. There we go.
There we go.
Big donut.
That's a giant donut.
The clock.
That's hilarious. So the first thing I want to do now, so if you need to catch up, please forgive us, but please do catch up, because what we want to do is we've been through definition of terms. I want to start with a place that I think is vitally important when we're in the lawmaking process, and that is to ask an unusual question, and that is, what are we afraid of? Now, I think it has to be personalized. And I think that it's always difficult to be expressive and be honest about what we're afraid of, what I'm afraid of. In other words, if Congress touches this process, what might come out that I would be very disappointed in? And that's important because to have the momentum and the courage to enter into the debate knowing that our objective is to bring something to the floor of Congress, if in fact we do then need a law changed, then what's the worst thing that could happen if the process gets hijacked and it goes off the rails? I think that's very, very important. So I'm just going to ask anybody, and just one point at a time. So and I'm going to write these down. So what, Rob, I'll ask you, what are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of?
If this happens, oh no, we did the wrong thing.
Well, I don't think I'm afraid of anything in that regard, only because then we can just fix it. I'm afraid that Congress will do nothing, and that'll leave us in the same spot.
I should have asked you last because that's a really good answer. In other words, the urgency of change is such that we have to go through the process because to keep it the same is worse. Okay.
Well, I'm afraid they won't do anything like they haven't done forever. So I guess that's my afraid. I'm afraid of the status quo.
Okay, eat another donut and figure this out. Okay, all right. Melanie, what are you afraid of?
I'm afraid. I would be afraid of making the problem worse.
How so?
Where we would be encouraging or giving incentive for more people to avoid coming in legally, right, so that we would have a bigger illegal immigration
You've mentioned
problem.
that before. I want to press in on that. So when you say the incentive to come in illegally, all right, so give me an example of what you think a policy change would be that might open that door to what you don't want to see happen.
Well, to tell them that if they don't come through the legal ports of entry in the normal process, if they're coming in across an illegal crossing somewhere in Texas, let's say, if they are able to stay out of trouble for 2 or 3 years, then we'll give them a legal status on a path to citizenship. And I just think that would be encouraging people not to go through the more time-focused process where they're vetted and everything else on the legal process.
Alan, let me go to you, and then Jeff will come to you.
Let me qualify this. I'm afraid of this for some citizens as well. But what I would be afraid of would be that we would be admitting people into the country who do not want to be a part of this project or the American experiment, as people call it. People who don't want to live by the creed as articulated in the Declaration.
Commonly termed as assimilation.
Sure. And again, I feel this way about American citizens who maybe aren't interested in our history, where we came from, why we are the way we are, too. So that's not just an immigrant thing, but I think that it is that as well.
So let me expand that. The assimilation could also be connoted as a separate nation. In other words, coming in and creating, if you will, an alternative or separate community that never assimilates, that in essence creates its own rules, its own laws. And if it can amass enough power at the local level, it can then move to leverage to where they can pull it off and get away with it.
Yeah, bringing other kinds of law, something like Sharia law, for example, bringing those types of ideas and trying to implement them here.
So factionalization was how it was in the original American experiment. The question is, how can we get people to drop their factions and recognize that becoming one nation on a certain code of laws that we all agree upon then becomes the rule? Mm-hmm. And so everyone has to give up something.
Yeah. And we already talked about this on the previous broadcast. Right. This is not saying, oh, don't celebrate your heritage and your culture where you came from. We talked about that.
I didn't jump in on that because you and I as Italians wanted to talk about restaurants and food.
Exactly.
But then in the recent monthly update that if you don't have it, please visit us at aproundtable.org or thepublicsquare.com.
The newly renovated.
Yes.
The Public Square.
Thepublicsquare.com, because I go on from the Italian point of view and say, wait a second, let's talk about an organization that is never assimilated, that is ethnically based entirely, and that's the European mafias. All right, it wasn't just Italians. It was Italians. It was Irish. There were Jewish mafias. There's all kinds of coming out of Russian. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's now there's Chinese. In other words,
Now there's cartels.
There are organized crime organizations that masquerade with American citizenship, utilize American citizenship, that have alternate membership, alternate economies, alternate laws, loyalties, enforcement, and they've always been viewed as criminal and always been pursued in this country. So the idea of non-assimilation is a serious reality, even if a person's masquerading as a citizen. In other words, if you're going to create an alternate universe here, outside, above, around our laws, we got a problem with that. It's called organized crime. So, and I don't think that's brought to the table enough. So, okay, Jeff, what are you afraid of?
Well, like Rob said, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm very concerned, and I really cannot add much to what everybody else has already said, except that I don't want any of the vetting process or processes to be changed. There are multitudes of nefarious people in this world who want to come into the United States to do horrible things to our citizenry. And I want to make sure that when we do let people into our country legally, that they are peaceful people who want to become American citizens under a constitutional republic.
Can I add one more thing I am afraid of on the other side of the coin? I fear God, as we all do. And so I am afraid that that we won't be good neighbors or we won't be, the Good Samaritan, or, I am afraid that there's a road you could take that you could go down that path as well on the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we have justice and mercy together.
Okay. I'm going to resist the common terminology that's used for that, because I think those words have been so overused they lose their meaning. Whether you're talking about xenophobia, nationalism, racism, those words, we'll skip the words, but go back to, can we reach the standard of justice and mercy?
All right, let's take our break. Our first break here on this week's edition of the Public Square. I didn't tell you who's here. That's Dave Zanotti, along with Alan C. Duncan, Rob Walgate, Melanie Elsie, Jeff Sanders. I'm Wayne Shepard, and we will be back with part 2 in just a moment. Stay with us.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Let's continue on the Public Square here today with a team. Our topic is immigration. As Dave said, this is our third program in this series, and you really should go back and listen to the other two at thepublicsquare.com or on YouTube to catch up. But
Mr. Healthnut, you're going to resist that yeast one?
No, I am allowed one donut a year.
Oh. Well,
and so I know I just had one. And that I am already losing my superpowers.
gentlemen, focus.
We're focused on the donuts.
Focused on my coffee.
All right, back to now. We'll lean into the coffee. All right, Wayne, what are you afraid of in this debate? I didn't get a chance to ask you that.
Well, like everybody else, I'm afraid of the division that is creating and an us versus them dichotomy. And as Alan said, concerned about spiritually speaking, how do we relate to our neighbors? Do we look at them as foreigners? The whole thing just is troublesome.
Alan started that off in such an interesting way. I think I'm going to have to read something that I don't have the courage to do. And this was sent to me by one of our dearest partners in ministry. And I'm not going to give the name because I don't want them to have to take the blame if I boot this. But let me tell you something that came around as a meme. Maybe you've seen it. And this touched me because I think it speaks to what you're talking about. It's just 3 sentences. America is not divided by race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. America is divided into wise people and fools. And fools divide themselves by race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. Huh. Now, my first response to that was, I don't like that word, fools. I don't know.
Kind of harsh.
It's harsh. That's very harsh. So about the 6th reading, all that I could hear was the scripture. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. And one of the things we talk about perpetually in the godless equation is if you lose God, you lose man. And that, in essence, is what this quote is saying. Also, we know that the beginning of wisdom is fear of the Lord. If we leave God out of this equation, the sense that there will be judgment for all of us as to how we treat our neighbor, and try to do this in our own strength as if there is no God, the Scripture says to us who adhere to Scripture and confess it, that we will be fools.
Yeah, fools despise wisdom and instruction.
Yes, over and over again. And the fool says in his heart, there's no God. So America is not divided by race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. If we look at the principles of the founding, that is absolutely true. Now, the practice of the founding, deficient. But the principle, all right, was what we fought for and continue to fight for every day. America is divided into wise people and fools. I'd like to say there's a choice between wisdom and mannishness. Wisdom and non-wisdom. Right? And fools, those who choose non-wisdom, divide themselves into race, color, gender, or sexual orientation. Because they divide themselves in places where God says those things exist, but your identity is in your relationship to your Creator. That's how you define yourself. Then you say, well, that's nice. That ship has sailed. We're a secular culture. Number one, I didn't vote for that. And when I see we the people, if I'm still one of we the people, I don't vote for a godless equation.
Not if you love your neighbor.
And I'll bet you there's a majority of people who don't want a godless equation.
Anybody told God that we're a secular nation now? What does he say about it?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He who sits in the heavens shall laugh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Reminds me, Nicole Nordeman had a song called Fool for You, and it talked about being a fool for Jesus. I once did a sermon on that, basically around that song, because being a fool for Jesus, the definition of fool, I believe, is to be deficient in practical sense. Is one of the definitions. So some of the things, and we took a look historically and through the Bible at where people were viewed as deficient in practical sense because of what they did for the Almighty and for Christ.
And in Hebrew, in the book of Proverbs, the word wisdom is actually a very organic word. The word wisdom is best defined as applied skill in living, almost as if it's defined as having dirt under your fingernails. You know how to do this. You know how to live. So there's a great case that can be. Now, I will tell you this, that the godless equation does get you to equality. The godless equation will get you equality. The God-filled equation makes all people equal in God's sight, created equal. And the godless equation gets you to equality as well. The difference is in the God-filled equation, you have equality with divine purpose and transcendent help available. In the godless equation, your equality is meaninglessness. You all are equally meaningless. So how do you fight it out from there and get to love of neighbor? Because if I'm nothing but time plus chance plus matter and nothing, then why should you worry about loving me as your neighbor? If I'm in your way, move me. Right? What difference does it make?
The survival of the fittest, the true Darwin model. The folks on the left, if they really wanted to see that model play out of what they believe, they would not like the consequences.
Yeah.
Or what would come about.
Well, and we've talked about this on the broadcast before. Richard Dawkins himself admits that he doesn't want to live in a culture based on Darwinian principles.
We've actually had dialogue in regards to the question of healthcare.
Yeah. Well, growing up, Pittsburgh local radio host Jim Quinn used to always talk about not being a believer, but he said he always wanted to vote for people that believed in the Almighty because he wanted them to believe the fact there would be consequences to their actions. He's like, why would I ever want an atheist to be in elected office because they're their own God?
Well, and see, then that's the third part that you bring to the equation the Declaration of Independence includes in the fourth reference to God, which is that he is the judge, the ultimate judge of the world. And so the Declaration of Independence, which we celebrate its 250th anniversary, it has 4 mentions of God, and that's one of them. And that's also the document from which we come up with the American doctrine that we are all made by God, our rights are given by God, and we are created equal. So here's the platform. If we're going to go for justice and mercy, we should acknowledge that justice and mercy are defined by a higher code, a higher ethic. Now, what's interesting is you can go from the pagan reality, which is, in essence, in my opinion, a pseudo-reality, but you can go from what the pagan would call, you could go all the way back to Plato and Aristotle. You can move all the way through to come that there is a commonality in the human experience, and that is that if you ask people, what is it that you want, almost always it comes down to the word justice.
Yeah. Well, even pagans worshipped. They were not a Darwinian
They
model.
did believe in an absolute truth in some way, shape,
shape, or form. And one of the absolute principles that is applied in those theories is the concept of justice. And what is the virtual universal definition of justice, whether you're talking about Aristotle or Genesis or Moses? It's to each his due, from which the ethic of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. I would venture that we could get almost unanimous consent across we the people if we said the key to immigration reform is that it's platformed on the ethic of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay, now that kind of levels the playing field, right? That is the teaching of the Old Testament and the New. And if there are people right now that are rising up to the radio to say, but, I understand. There have been a lot of alternatives, plans, initiatives launched saying that's what we're doing. And then you look at it and say, no, it doesn't seem like that's what you're doing. So people can masquerade with that language. With that as a precursor, let's talk about, we know what we're afraid of. So the first thing I want to ask is, do we have a secure border? Is a secure border an absolute for the resolution of this? In other words, if America can do all the things that we do, including now private sectors sending people to the moon, not just the government, can we create a genuinely secure border where people cannot come in and out of this country unless, A, we know who they are, B, they come in under the mechanisms of terms of agreement, and 3, those terms of agreement are enforced?
Well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I will. And I would say,
thank you, Rob.
Prepare to be rejected.
If this would have been on the table 18 months ago or 2 years ago, I think the number one thing we would have said was we have to secure the border.
Okay,
that would have been at the top of the list. So the fact that that is something that has been done, I think, is a key to your point.
Yes,
that must stay and be maintained regardless of what administration is in office to move on to point 2.
So if there are first principles of this, I'm not saying this is number one. Let's say if there's first principles, that's got to be high on the list.
Number one. Everybody here has a secure border around their house. You have locks on your doors. So why not your country?
So secure border. Okay. So we've got one thing that we have unanimous consent on, and we sense that it would be unanimous consent or darn close to it all over the place. And people have their caveats. Yeah, but. Okay, we'll get through all the buts. But you still got to have secure border. Okay? Give me another idea. Melanie, if you now it's your turn. You've got a chance. Create me a law. Give me something.
I have a list, but you just want one thing, right?
For this time.
Okay.
We'll come back. There's more donuts. We got you.
Okay, so I'll skip the full list. Well, I think and you have to go in steps and sequence. And I hear what you're saying about justice and mercy. So somewhere woven in there, we have to balance out whose responsibility is it to confer benefits. You know, is it the civil government, or should it be the role of the church? Or if we're saying I love my neighbor as myself, should it be my role? So somewhere in there, we're going to have to figure out a good equation for that. And I have lots of ideas.
It's a very important point on benefits. So
I wasn't even thinking about benefits when I said
that's great. That's got to be a part of the
but
equation. All right, so we'll come back on that. We'll come right back on that.
So let's take our break at this point in time. This is The Public Square. We are online at thepublicsquare.com, and we're on YouTube. You can listen conveniently on your YouTube, so to speak, and you'll find us. Just search for The Public Square.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square. Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the Public Square.
Okay, let's follow up with Melanie's comment a few moments ago on the Public Square. The topic is immigration today. We're trying to get down to brass tacks here, aren't we, Dave?
Sure. And so let me ask Melanie, pass the donut. Okay, no, sorry. Benefits. Okay, so a person comes in through a secure border. They come in legally. And now the question is, at what point do they get benefits? And are those federal, state, local benefits? So let's ask the first point. As a person comes over and they're in need, who should be, in essence, the first responder in your mind? Should it be the federal, state, local government, or somebody else?
And you're thinking, you're putting this in the context of legal immigration?
Yes. The only thing we're talking about is legal immigration.
Okay.
Well, we have to talk. Can we also talk about what to do with people who are here illegally currently or later?
Later.
Okay.
Okay. So for legal immigration,
That's all we're talking about.
Okay. So we want, first of all, we have more than 167 statutes on legal immigration, on what the process looks like. There are most of which are excellent laws. What we've had a problem with is the enforcement of those laws. So on the legal side of the statutes that we already have in place, I think they could be tweaked. I do believe that people coming in legally should be able to, after a certain period of time, which we have established in statute, move from a permanent resident status to being able to apply for citizenship. So in that window of time prior to citizenship, there should be very limited, if any, federal benefits coming in. We want people to come in who are going to offer stability and be able to contribute to society, but we want to give them some grace period. So maybe during the time that they're on temporary residential status, if there is a formula for determining a specific need, we have to remember that if they're not earning money into the system, they're using other people's tax dollars, the tax dollars of citizens, to pay for those needs.
Okay, benefits, high on the list. And what I'm hearing you say is you come here legally, and there is a limited window of time. If you have need, would you say that the federal government is the first responder to that need, or state or local?
Definite, as local as can be, because then you get people involved in people's lives to where they're interested in taking care of someone's need.
As drafting the law, we could say, and just as a starting point, when you come here legally, you get no federal benefits until citizenship. Now, if states want to come in and provide help and assistance, that's a different situation. Locals, churches, charities.
And you'd have to clarify that because there's a lot of state dollars that are flow through from the federal government.
Okay.
Where the federal government does block grants, for example, and then states disperse the money like they do in education.
But wouldn't the state have the right, if they've been given the right to dedicate those dollars, that they're still state dollars? I understand they're coming through federal. Are you saying, no, you can't do that either?
Federal dollars come from all over the country. So the residents of Ohio should be focused on dollars that are sourced from Ohio.
Okay, there's a lot of legal...
Yeah, that's a shell game that'll just get
there's a lot of questions.
Workaround.
For the purposes of getting to a law that's debatable, we're talking about no federal benefits until citizenship. All right, let's have the courage to put that down and see where it goes.
Well, and just a quick aside, I would refer people for a little bit more of kind of an example conversation on this. Refer people to Rob's Public Square interview with Cosmin Bota that we did recently. It's on YouTube. It's a video. And he talks about his family immigrating from Romania. And he does talk about getting a brief period of time where they got some assistance, but they wanted to get off of that as quickly as possible and get to work. It's just a very interesting story to hear someone who's been through it.
And so if we were to start this, and we're in Congress and we present these matters, so this is going to be one of those things to say zero? No, we're starting at zero. And if it goes to this temporary or this slot, I mean, you let there be a little wiggle room in the original presentation, but the principle is the federal government is not paying for this process.
And let me give you a concrete example of where current law has gone awry on this. You have folks who are here legally on work permits or whatever, pulling federal benefits, aid to dependent children, sending that money back to their original country to support families that are not here. Their children are back in their country of origin. So that's another reason why the federal dollar should not flow to someone who is simply here on a work visa or something that is not working towards citizenship.
Okay. So now let's talk about citizenship. Where does that come into the process? Obviously, it's going to be in the top set of priorities. So a person comes here, they legally immigrate, and we have a standard procedure by which they're going to become citizens. Are you okay with the standard procedure that we have in the time frames and the hoops you got to jump through?
No.
Okay. How would you change it?
I would change the time. I would make it a longer time frame for temporary residency. I would have more stringent processes to review their social media path, records, and financial records. Now, it may be an immigrant coming from a country where there is no access to some social media. That might be sketchy on some countries.
This is before they're permitted to get in the country.
This is a part of the process of them being a temporary resident. And then while they're here, you have to take a look at who they're communicating with. Are they communicating with Al-Qaeda or.
Are you asking for social media because you want to see if they're making any detrimental comments towards the United States or regarding our system of government?
Not just that, but who they're connected to in terms of, I don't know the right word, the wrongdoers across the world.
The jihadists, the
Correct.
Antifa, the Marxists, the narco-terrorists.
Because we do have people here who are here lawfully, who have very strong connections to terrorist
They
groups.
love Hamas. They love Al-Shabaab.
So there has to be a screening process.
Right.
for
How
that.
would you screen that then? What you would look at their social media?
The social media footprint,
Yep.
You're not saying
financial,
you would
international
tap
financial.
their phones or something like that.
Oh no,
right?
no, no.
Okay.
Okay, so we're quantifying a person is permitted in legally. They have a temporary residence, whatever formula those cards or documents would require. And if they're applying for citizenship, all right, and they're here in the process, then you want a longer temporary status to have a fuller vetting review. That, Jeff, that goes back to what you talked about, the term of vetting. So that I think vetting is a big number 3 category on permitting that person to come in. All right.
Well, I'm just thinking of the legal arguments that people are going to be making from the other side. And would that be, I guess it wouldn't be, there's nothing that you would be prosecuted on. There's nothing they would say you'd be penalized and you would lose the opportunity to become a citizen based on what you say.
Or they just send you back. You can't come in.
Yeah. Why would someone want to be a citizen of the United States if their whole point was to bash the form of government in which they were coming to?
They're doing it now.
They're doing it now.
I understand
Because they want to.
I understand they're
destroy us.
doing it now, and one of the reasons they do it now is because they can't say those things about the place they're coming from.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere else in the world that I'm aware of that people go into the place other than a few European countries. And
And here's one of the things that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of when we get into these corners, which there are going to be lots of corners. All right, because sometimes I think that creating legal reform is a bit like riding the Dodgem cars at the theme park. Okay, you get into these bumps, you get these runs where it's clear sailing, and the next thing you know, you're sitting in a corner, you can't wheel your way out. Okay, part of the they versus us argument is to take the extreme, which is not a majority, and to pivot it into such a corner that you can't move forward. So that's one of the things that I'm afraid of in processing, because we've got, and this is where we've got to admit what we're afraid of. So how do we solve what it is that we're afraid of? We have a longer, more sufficient, and it's a federal vetting process. Are you comfortable with the vetting process coming from the federal side of it?
Yes.
Jeff, you think the federal side of it's sufficient on the vetting?
When it is enforced, yes.
Okay. All right,
When a federal government says,
my
"No, we're
question-
not going to look at it."
My question. Well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's in the presumption. Okay, and I think that legally, given the plenary authority of Congress on naturalization, it's probably the only place it can be. Now the question is, can we handle it? All right. Which then brings us. I'm gonna put something up on. Okay, so let me ask the question: how restricted should legal immigration be? Does anybody have a number in their mind for the moment? Now, understanding things change as time goes on, but is there a number you'd say we should, if if this law works, how many people should be able to come in?
I think currently right now we have 700 to 850,000 people a year that become United States citizens.
And about 1 million green cards that go out. So we're in the million zone.
And there are
I mean,
some,
how many are coming in legally every year?
700 to 850,000
every year.
citizens.
there are
every
some
year.
categories that have no limit, though.
Right.
If they're family members of someone who's here legally, I think the work visas have an unlimited.
So we're letting out 1 million opportunities and not quite bringing in the current status 1 million. So it's 1 million in the process and about 800,000 are processed in legally.
Yes, as citizens.
I would restrict that even more.
Why?
Let's pause on that why question. We'll come back to it in just a moment here in the Public Square. Thanks for your support of the American Policy Roundtable. Yes, we have a couple of websites, aproundtable.org and thepublicsquare.com. All right, the question on the table here for part 4 of the Public Square today is why? What was the question again?
How many? How many annually should be permitted? And the question is how many? And Jeff, you said you were about
I
to
would
recommend.
restrict it even more.
To what number?
And by the way, I'm the father-in-law of soon-to-be 2
We're not questioning your integrity. Just
coming
give us the number.
into this country. I want it to be more difficult to get into this country, and I want only the very best to come into this country.
Okay. How many?
I don't know. You said 700,000?
815,000 was fiscal year 2024, I believe. Legal citizens, became citizens.
So my question is, why do we need that
Okay.
for the workforce?
All right. Okay. Now let me ask you this question, and please be careful. Have another donut. Okay. I want to be careful because this is by the way how we talk around the table, and this is how we actually do lawmaking process. And sometimes our questions get very pointed. Understand, we have lifetimes, we have decades of loving relationships around this table, and we have not lost one.
Not yet.
In a conversation like this. So if I ask a question, you go, "Oh, wow, ooh, that was too pointed." Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question in return in this regard. How, well, you know what our population rate is right now, 1.6.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the birth rate?
The birth rate.
Yeah, we're way below.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what number do you think we need to level that up?
I can't do the math. Rob is the math guy. I am not the math guy.
So you don't have a number in your mind?
I do not.
And the reason I pointed it out that way, forgive me for exposing, is a fact he doesn't know, because 99% of us don't know the answer to that question. And I want people to know you can be really good at this stuff and not know the answer to that question. Here's what we're facing. We're facing a place where America right now is teetering on there being more people who die every year than people who are born. And if we have 1 million people coming into this country, that simply replaces the 1 million that we're aborting.
Didn't even think about that.
So that means that if we bring in 1 million a year, and that offsets the number of those that are being aborted, but we still have more dying than are being born, we haven't solved anything.
And you haven't assimilated anyone yet.
And right. So if we're interested in the value of immigration as helping us offset our loss of the love of life, which is our fundamental problem here, then what we have to come up with is a number that will help us on the dying versus being born. And hopefully we will slight that toward people that are 40 years of age and under, or 30 years of age and under, so that they can be of childbearing age, because that will help us dramatically in regards. And one thing, you say, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Well, hang on a second. No, I'm not kidding you. In 15 years, our colleges will start closing on a monthly basis, or darn near close to it.
They're starting now.
All right? There, you will see businesses disappearing, and you will see our Social Security system collapsing, and every other form of safety net collapsing, because we don't have enough people. And if you add robotics to it, guess what? Robots don't pay Social Security or Medicaid or property taxes or anything else. If we don't have more people, our systems and ways of life are going to collapse, because there's no productivity, so there's no tax base.
And let's look at those numbers real quick. Right now, you probably have, over a little over 13, 14 million legal permanent residents that are here in the United States in one way or another. You have 800,000 each year that become citizens. They basically come from that pool. From that pool.
All right, everybody got that? 14 million in the queue, 800,000 are passing through that queue on an annual basis.
And then you have another 1 million to 1.2
entering the queue.
Get a green card every year and come over. The majority of those are from family members. Well, not majority. I think 25 to 40% are from family members that are already here. I think roughly only 140, 150,000 of those are job related.
So the point is, there is a system, and it's not a stupid system. But it's not working anywhere near quickly enough, and it got radically overwhelmed in the last 5 years. Until the border was closed, the open borders radically overwhelmed the intelligence and the balance of the existing system. But there's something else that happened. We lost our love for life, and we stopped having children. And that's been a problem that's been climbing onto us for 20 years, and now it is inescapable. It is the greatest threat to the American system and way of life. If you don't have enough people to support your system of life, you got a big problem. And technology isn't going to fix it because robots don't pay taxes. Newsflash.
Or procreate.
Yeah.
Or yes,
Okay.
or
All right.
procreate.
So let's turn back to Melanie. All right. Number. You got a number in mind? If you just get, granted, it's going to be debated. It's going to be flexible. But what do you think? Legal immigration.
My problem is it's not just a number. And I know that we're talking about all the nuances, but if I say like 1.5 million, that would have to be a 1.5 million who are committed to work, committed to be productive, committed to raising a family. So it's like a 1.5 million of a certain mindset coming in.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I think that's what you saw during the legal immigration process. It got overwhelmed because of people were saying, wait a minute, why am I going to wait in line? In essence, maybe even have to pay more money or wait longer when I can just walk across the border and no one's going to say a word.
Part of your vetting process, you've already said while you're in the queue, you get no federal access until citizenship. So those people are going to have to work during the time period that they're in the queue to become citizens. So you're working toward that sort of a methodology right now. You're getting. I see the logic of it. It seems like we haven't broken anything here.
Right. But current law, and maybe these statutes could be tweaked as well, also addresses those who would be coming in seeking asylum, coming in for reasons that don't allow them to immediately be productive. They're in an emergency situation. They have to get out from where they are to where we are. So that's where the state and local can come in to provide some assistance.
So you wouldn't wipe those categories out. You're just saying that
we have to have the capacity to. That's the mercy side of justice and mercy.
And so you would open up the state and the locals to come in like in asylum cases and that sort of situation.
Well, federally approved asylum cases with state and local assistance if the states and locals choose to do so.
All right. So we're getting somewhere. Okay. So how fast could we start this?
There's a lot more to work through. Than
I think there will be some internals and logistics as well, because when you look at the places that these folks go, they're going to places that already have a percentage of the population that are immigrants because they're going to places where they know folks.
Okay. That being the case, then let's segue. We've got just a couple minutes here real quick, and then we're going to use our whole last segment in this regard. So we're not going to solve, but this is an hour. I usually say we've got more coffee, we have more donuts. It usually takes 2 hours. So this is the condensed version, but you get the idea of how we're getting started here. What about the people who are already here, who have come here illegally, who have not broken the law in country, broke the law to get to country? All right. What about those people? And since we're looking for more people, they are here. They have family here. They have jobs here. They meet so many of the requirements we talked about. We cannot round them up. If anyone thinks you can round up 12 million people, we can't round up 10,000 people without getting into real problems. And part of it is the radical opposition that doesn't want this conversation to happen because they don't want this problem to be fixed because they're anarchists. I get it. but the size and scope of the task is too large to be accomplished. You can't say that.
Yeah.
That means we failed. Yes, we failed.
Facts and logic are what they are, and the logistics are you don't have enough cops, federal or state or local, to do the job.
So let's figure out, Wayne, how we're going to fix this. We got 10 minutes to do it, and there's too many donuts.
Well, I realize we're going to leave some people hanging if you have to leave us at this time, but you've always got the internet to catch up on the last segment of this program. Use thepublicsquare.com or youtube.com to find The Public Square and listen there. We'll be back.
We will be right back for more on The Public Square.
All right, as Dave said earlier, this will be our final segment today on this topic of immigration, but I have a feeling this is going to be a conversation to be continued.
It is, and there's something really bad about having 4 boxes of donuts surrounding you. They just whittle you down.
Did you try mine yet?
They
Did you
whittle-
try
they
it?
whittle-
It's from 1937.
Yeah, they whittle you down.
I am
Yeah,
still
I know. I'm aware.
practicing self-control.
So, you still have it. Okay. The question on the table is, what about the people who are already here? All right. Understanding that they broke the law to get here. I would like to add one other thing. We just had a significant trustee conversation about this here at APR. And I asked them, particularly asked Dr. Allen, are you comfortable with us using this language? And he said, I'm absolutely comfortable. We have moral culpability in this. It's easy to point a finger and say, you came here and you broke the law. And the reality is the failure of our enforcement actions coming from the federal Congress and the opposition forces in the anarchists, as well as the political forces in the parties, lawlessness goes both ways. We could have closed the border a lot sooner, and as a nation, we did not. And the law doesn't know your political party. And the people who came across don't know the political party. We, all the people, bear moral culpability. We permitted this to happen. And these people came through the cracks. They stepped over the rules. Our Congress did nothing. Our elected representatives did nothing. And they've been hiding in this country doing the very best that they can. And I am not about to morally judge any of them. I can positionally say, did they break the law? The answer is yes. Would they say they broke the law? The answer most likely is yes. So what do we do with them? We know we can't round them up. And we know they are not, again, we have the vetting process has to be very significant. We can't let criminals, people who've been convicted, committing crimes in this country or in their prior, we got to be very careful. But most of the people that are here have not exhibited themselves to be criminals. The statistics do not bear that out. I saw stats from Tennessee the other day. Of all the people who have been rounded up so far, the thousands that have been rounded up in Tennessee, it's a couple thousand, 41 have been convicted of crimes in the United States other than traffic violations. And those 41 have been rounded up and they're gone. 41 out of several thousand. I wouldn't be surprised that the statistics in most states are very much the same. Good news is we need to get the 41 out. Now what are we going to do about the rest of them? Okay? These are human beings made in God's image just like us. If they pass the vetting process for citizenship and their track record is good, Jeff, what do we do with them? I'll ask you first.
Okay. First thing I would do is I would say you've got a grace period of about 30 days, maybe 60. Come out of the shadows, as they say, register with the federal government, come clean and say, yes, I broke the law
Identify
coming
yourself.
here.
Got it.
But if you have not committed any other crimes, I'm not talking about a
Misdemeanors.
jaywalking or something like that.
No felonies.
Right. And you were working. That's another big deal. You've started a business of some sort or you're working for somebody.
Which they shouldn't be if they're illegal.
True.
But they are.
But
we all know that.
Here they are. Okay. So what I would do is I would put you on, I would not say a path to citizenship. I'm hesitant about that.
Well, those are now buzzwords. I get it.
Okay. A permanent status where you can live here and not be harassed or whatever.
You put them on a process.
A
We got to come
process-
up with the right language that people can choke down and say, okay, process.
of legal status, not temporary status. You can live here.
Is the outcome citizenship if things work
I,
right?
no, I don't think so, because once you say citizenship, eventually you can vote.
So
but
you're
they have no
saying-
vested interest to want to do anything the right way. If they don't,
They're
there's
not going to be
at the end.
arrested, and they're not going to be thrown back. They're not going to be sent
Okay,
back
so
to their
you will
country of
not
origin.
permit people
they're
in
not
that
gonna-
process to ever be
Okay,
citizens.
I don't
Rob,
think
you
the-
would
I
have
don't
to
think-
convince
hang
me
on,
of that.
hang-
I
I
would
don't-
like to that conversation.
I will. I don't think they're going to be willing to come out of the shadows that you said if there's not something at the end of the tunnel for there's a willingness to come out of the shadows. Melanie
Because they already know we can't come
yeah,
get them.
Yeah, we're not going to come get them.
They don't.
Melanie referenced,
they're
they
pretty smart
we
folks.
shouldn't be working. We know they're working. And here's the reality.
smart folks.
Here's the reality. They're working in many instances for people who do have lots of money. Those are the people that are hiring them to do the work.
And let me be careful here. There is the stereotype that says these are all people who speak Spanish from Hispanic countries. They're all from Central America, South America. That's not true. No. That's
A lot
not
of
true.
them are
There's
from
people-
Africa.
Yeah, there's people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'm
so
not
let's be
saying it should
careful.
be next week, but I'm saying 5, 10
So you
years.
say
something.
zero citizenship. Okay,
I have a
Alan.
quick question I'm not trying to derail it at all. But how many of those people are on some sort of federal benefits?
That would be a miss. I don't have that information. The other thing is that whether they're working or they're on federal benefits, they had to get some methodology of finding a way to get into the cracks of identification for that to happen.
Right, okay.
So that gets complicated state by state.
And if they had children while they were here, that's another big process issue.
Now, that's a question I've been wanting to ask, Rob. What about the children who were born here?
Well, that's going to be decided
The
by the
Supreme
U.S.
Court.
Supreme
Yeah, the
Court.
Supreme Court's about ready to figure
Court's
that part
gonna
out. Yeah.
Take that one up and
And the
have
Congress
that
doesn't have to
conversation.
buy by what the court says. Congress can pass a law and change it if they want to.
I have a very specific point by point. They have to, if you're here illegally, which there are tens of millions who are,
Sure.
they have to come out and register with INS, let us know who you are.
Okay.
And that without fear of being deported, unless you've got a criminal record, which are, if you're clean and on your record, register, then you can apply for permanent residency. And I'm agreeing with Jeff that it would be residency that would give you work opportunities, a chance to improve your life. If they said they're coming here to improve their life, they can work and not be afraid of being unlawfully employed. No federal benefits ever. No citizenship ever. Therefore, no possibility of being a voting person ever. And the reason I say that, I'm not trying to be harsh, but when we talk about unintended consequences, if it's so easy to come across illegal and just slip into the system to be able to be a citizen and vote, it's going to be counterproductive to the legal immigration system. They can be here forever. They can live here.
I disagree in the sense of, I think whether it's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years, the process, if you say you can never become a citizen, they may have 30 family members that are citizens of the United States they came to see. You just lost those 30 votes. You just lost the 30 votes.
And
Those
will you get
people-
the kids vote? Will the children vote?
The
Will
kids
they-
that are
I don't agree.
citizens.
I don't know about
All right.
that.
We take our kids to the voting booth with us many
Yes.
times, and they see us doing it.
Wayne, go ahead.
Well,
You're
I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a person like this, and that you're requiring them to trust in the government. And I know we're trying to make law here, theoretically, but wouldn't they say, look, this can change from administration to administration. The laws can be changed. If I do this, I'm putting myself in jeopardy.
So here's where we are time-wise. Okay, we have donuts left. This takes more than an hour. We've always thought it takes 2 hours. So we're not going to continue on next week. We're going to let everybody who's listening argue about this for a little bit of time. Then we're going to come back to it. All right. But here's what I would submit to you. This is the sticking point. We have found the sticking point. The sticking point is exceptionally awkward because what we're doing is to say we're going to have classes of people in this country, which violates the fundamental first principles of our Declaration and a biblical worldview. And that's why we're stumbling. That's why the cloth is snagging, because we haven't thought through all those pieces and parts yet. So we've got much more conversation to have. It doesn't make anybody bad or good, depending on whether you agree or disagree with them. But I would submit this. One way of breaking the logjam might be if we give them the choice and say, you can remain a lifetime permanent resident with no voting rights. Here are the deals. Here's what you get, or you leave. Or you can apply for citizenship, and here is what that would require with the ultimate passage of full citizenship and voting rights. And to somewhere in that to incorporate, if you will, the process of penalty for illegal entry and make it different than someone coming across the border clean as a whistle in the new regime of law, new regimen of law, okay? Choice might be the answer. Not sure, but the conversation has to go forward.
Well, we covered a lot of ground today, didn't we? But there's a lot more to cover, as Dave said. So stay tuned for future discussions of this on the Public Square. And as always, we welcome your feedback as well. You can do that through our websites, aproundtable.org or thepublicsquare.com. See you next time.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.